The girl's bare feet tore across the dry grass, every step slicing her skin open on thorns and sharp stones. Her breath rattled in her throat, desperate, uneven. Behind her, boots slammed against the ground, heavier, slower, but steady as a war drum. He was gaining. "Lydia!" The man's voice slurred, low and ugly. "You think you can run from me? You think the whole damn prairie's gonna hide you?" The night carried his words like a curse. Coyotes yelped far off, and the moon lit the open plains in cold silver. Lydia didn't dare look back. If she looked back, she might stumble. And if she stumbled, he'd have her. Her heart pounded like it wanted to break free from her chest. She could taste iron in her mouth. Her stepfather had been drinking since sundown, and once he drank, the rage came crawling out. She had seen it before. She knew what it meant. Her lungs screamed. Her legs shook, but stopping wasn't an option. A wagon road cut across her path, its ruts deep and jagged. She stumbled once, caught herself, and kept moving. The prairie grass whipped against her thin arms as she darted into it, praying the tall stalks would shield her. But then, click. The sound of iron cocking back froze her bones. Somewhere behind her, he had drawn the rifle. "Don't make me put you down like a dog," he growled. His words were heavy, dragging through the darkness. "You come back, girl, you come back right now." Her chest burned, her vision blurred. The stars above swam in dizzy circles. But she kept running. She had to. The gunshot tore the silence apart. The round screamed past her ear. Close enough she felt the air split. Her cry caught in her throat, but she didn't fall. She pressed on, faster, harder, blind with terror. A ravine cut across the land ahead. Dry, rocky, 20 feet deep. She saw it too late. The ground vanished beneath her. Her body hit the slope, rolled, scraped over stone and dirt. Pain ripped across her back and arms as she tumbled, dust choking her lungs. She struck bottom with a bone-jarring thud. The world tilted. For a moment she lay there, staring at the pale sky, her ears ringing from the fall. The rifleman's shadow appeared at the rim above. His laughter was slow, heavy, certain. "You ain't going nowhere now." Lydia clawed at the dirt, dragging herself backwards on trembling elbows. Her palms bled. Her breath whistled in panic. The man slung the rifle down over his shoulder and started climbing after her, boots kicking loose stones as he descended. His face, lit by the moon, was twisted with drink and rage. Her back hit the canyon wall. She had nowhere left to go. Her throat closed. "Please," she whispered. Voice cracking. He grinned, rotten teeth catching the light. "Please don't what?" he sneered, drawing the knife from his belt. The blade glinted, cruel and sharp. Lydia's eyes darted wildly around the ravine, looking for a rock, a stick, anything, but her hands found nothing but dirt and dust. Her chest heaved. She pressed herself flat against the stone, the knife flashing closer. And then, the ground beneath them shook. A low thunder rolled through the ravine, not from the sky, but from the earth itself. The man froze, knife half raised. "What the hell?" Lydia's eyes widened as the sound grew, rumbling, pounding, echoing through the canyon walls. Hoofbeats. Dozens, no, hundreds. The herd came like a storm. Wild horses surged over the ridge, manes flying, eyes burning white in the moonlight. Their screams split the night air as they poured into the canyon like a flood of muscle and fury. The man's sneer vanished. His eyes went wide. "No." The lead stallion reared, hooves striking sparks on stone, a beast of fire and rage. The herd thundered behind him, filling the ravine with raw power. Dust exploded around them. Lydia shielded her face with her arms, heart hammering as the wall of horses swept closer, closer, closer. The man spun, stumbling, knife slipping from his hand. His scream tore out of his throat, and that's when the stallion lunged. The stallion crashed down, hooves slamming into the dirt inches from the man's boots. The ground shook like thunder. The stepfather fell backward, scrambling, arms flailing as the wall of horses funneled into the ravine. Lydia pressed herself against the stone, eyes wide, breath tearing from her chest. Dust swirled, choking the air, the sound of hooves deafening. She could barely see the man through the storm, but she heard him, shouting, cursing, begging. The horses swarmed around him, muscle and fury in motion. His knife lay forgotten in the dirt. And then, silence. The herd slowed, circling, their bodies like shadows in the moonlight. The stallion stood tall at the center, his massive frame blocking Lydia from her stepfather. His breath poured from flared nostrils, hot clouds in the cold night. The man stumbled back, eyes wild. "Devil beasts," he muttered. "They ain't real, but they were real. And they were watching him. He turned and clawed his way up the ravine wall, scrambling on hands and knees until he disappeared over the ridge. His ragged breath faded into the night. Lydia stayed frozen, trembling. The herd surrounded her now. The stallion lowered his head, eyes dark and deep, staring at her. She held her breath. The beast snorted once, a sharp burst of air, then turned. The herd followed, flowing past her like a river of ghosts. Within moments, the canyon was empty again. She thought she'd lost him in the open fields. She thought she was free. Until the rifle cocked behind her. Back in the present, the first streaks of dawn crept over the canyon walls. Lydia sat shivering in the dirt, arms wrapped tight around her knees. Her skin stung with cuts and bruises, her throat raw from breathing dust. The herd was gone, but she could still feel the tremor of their hooves, the strange protection they'd given her. She didn't know why they'd come. She only knew one thing. He would come back, and next time she might not have horses to save her. On the ridge above, far from her sight, her stepfather leaned against a dead tree, spitting blood from where he'd bitten his tongue in the fall. His eyes narrowed, his grin returned. "She ain't done running yet," he muttered. "Not by a damn sight." He raised the rifle again, checked the chamber, and started down the far slope. The sun crept higher, washing the prairie in gold. Lydia's eyes burned from exhaustion, but she forced herself to climb. Her palms scraped raw against stone as she pulled her battered body out of the ravine. Her stepfather's tracks were gone, but she knew he hadn't left. He never left. The land stretched wide before her, rolling fields, scattered mesquite, the long shadow of the mountains to the west. She staggered forward, dust clinging to her skin, lips cracked. Every step felt borrowed. Somewhere ahead, smoke rose in a thin line against the sky. A campfire, maybe a ranch, maybe someone who could help. She moved toward it, legs trembling beneath her. By mid-morning, Lydia collapsed on the edge of a clearing. A man sat by the fire, coffee tin in hand, his rifle propped against a saddle stump. His hair was streaked gray, his face weathered by years of sun and silence. He looked up the moment he heard her fall. For a second, neither spoke. Just the wind, just the fire. Then the man set down his tin and stood. "You lost, girl?" Lydia's chest heaved. She tried to answer, but the words caught in her throat. The man stepped closer, careful, measured. His eyes narrowed when he saw the bruises along her cheek, the cuts across her arms. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low. She swallowed hard. Her lips quivered. "My stepfather." His jaw tightened. A shadow passed across his face, something old, something heavy. He knelt, offering his canteen. "Drink." The water burned down her dry throat, but she gulped until she coughed. The man didn't press her, he just waited. Finally, Lydia whispered, "He's coming for me." The stranger's gaze shifted past her, scanning the tree line. His hand lingered near the rifle. "Then you best stay close," he said. The stepfather was already close. He crouched in the tall grass 100 yards back, watching. His lips peeled into a grin when he saw the girl beside the mountain man. "You think you found yourself a savior?" he muttered. "Let's see how long he lasts." He retreated into the brush, careful and patient. Rage simmered inside him, but he knew better than to rush. This wasn't just about dragging her back anymore. This was about punishing her for running. The man at the camp handed Lydia a strip of dried meat. She chewed slow, still trembling. He studied her with eyes that saw more than he said. "You got a name?" "Lydia." "Lydia," he repeated. "I'm Samuel." She nodded faintly. For a long moment, there was only silence, the fire snapping between them. Then Samuel asked, "How long you been running?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Since last night." Samuel frowned. "Out here, alone, in the dark? You're lucky you didn't break your neck." "I almost did," she said, voice trembling. "The horses. They saved me." He raised an eyebrow. "Horses?" "A whole herd," she said, eyes wide with memory. "They came out of nowhere. They stopped him." Samuel studied her. He didn't laugh, didn't call her crazy. Instead, he looked toward the horizon, thoughtful. "Some say wild herds still roam these parts. Old blood, untamed." His gaze returned to her. "Maybe they knew you needed saving." Lydia shook her head. "He'll come back." Samuel's jaw clenched. "Then he'll find more than he bargained for." The brush rustled. Samuel's head snapped up. He reached for his rifle. Lydia froze, her heart hammering. But it was only a rabbit darting across the clearing. Samuel exhaled, lowering the weapon. Still, his eyes stayed fixed on the tree line. Something about the silence now felt different. He had seen ambushes before. He had felt danger coil in the air like this. He turned back to Lydia. "If you're staying, you do as I say, you hear?" She nodded. He studied her once more, then added, "And if he comes, I don't run from men like him. Not anymore." On the ridge, the stepfather smirked, watching Samuel's stance. He'd seen that look before, in soldiers, in gunslingers, in killers. This wasn't some farmer. But it didn't matter. The girl was his. And when he came for her tonight, there would be no horses, no strangers, no saviors left standing between them. The sun sank lower. Shadows stretched long across the clearing. Samuel stoked the fire, his back to the trees. Lydia sat wrapped in a blanket he'd given her, but her eyes never left the darkening horizon. "Samuel," she wailed. "Is spared?" He glanced over. "What if he kills you?" Samuel stared into the fire. The flames reflected in his tired eyes. "Then he'll find out I don't die easy." The first rifle shot cracked through the trees. The tin cup exploded by the fire, shards scattering into the dirt. Lydia screamed. Samuel dropped low, rolling to his rifle, snapping it up in one swift motion. Another shot rang out, ripping bark from the log inches from her head. Samuel's voice was sharp, commanding. "Get down, girl!" Lydia flattened against the earth as the third shot echoed. Samuel returned fire, the blast echoing like thunder. Smoke curled from the barrel as he scanned the tree line, but the stepfather was nowhere to be seen. Only silence, only the dark. The clearing went still after the third shot. Only smoke from the fire drifted into the cooling air, curling in thin, ghostly lines. Lydia clutched the blanket to her chest, her whole body trembling. Samuel stayed crouched, eyes locked on the tree line, rifle steady. He didn't blink, didn't breathe too deep. Men like him had lived through too many nights like this. The silence was the worst part. Silence meant the bastard was moving, stalking, waiting. Then, a twig snapped. Samuel spun and fired. The blast lit up the brush, scattering a murder of crows into the darkening sky. But the stepfather wasn't there. "Damn it," Samuel muttered under his breath. His jaw clenched tight. He dropped lower, crawling toward Lydia. She flinched when his hand touched her shoulder. "Stay down," he whispered. "And don't make a sound." Her lips parted. "He won't stop. I know." His eyes flicked toward the woods again. "But neither will I." The stepfather was circling. He crouched low in the brush, teeth bared in a grin. His shots hadn't hit, but they hadn't needed to. He wanted them scared, wanted them waiting. A man protecting her? Fine. He'd cut him down first. And when the girl screamed, when she saw her so-called savior bleed out into the dirt, she'd know. She'd know she never should have run. He shifted, careful, every step measured. He'd been hunting since he was a boy, and this time, the prey was personal. Samuel scanned the clearing, finger brushing the trigger. "He's playing games," he muttered, "trying to keep us guessing." Lydia's hands clutched the earth. "He doesn't play. He kills." Samuel's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, but only a fraction. Then the steel returned. "Not tonight." The next shot came from the opposite side. The bullet tore through Samuel's saddlebag, spilling dry biscuits and cartridges into the dirt. Lydia gasped. Samuel shoved her flat to the ground, crawling over her to shield her with his body. "Stay down," he barked. He raised the rifle and fired back. The muzzle flash lit the tree line, and this time he heard a grunt, a hit. The sound of boots retreating followed. Samuel narrowed his eyes. "He's hurt, but not enough." Lydia's breath shuddered in her chest. Her cheek was pressed into the dirt, eyes wide. "He won't stop. He'll come again." Samuel reloaded, teeth grinding. "Then we'll be ready." The fire burned lower as night swallowed the prairie. The woods around them grew darker, thicker with shadows. Samuel shifted the girl behind the fallen log, then stacked the saddle and bags around her, a makeshift barrier. "You stay here," he ordered. Her eyes went wide. "No, don't leave me." "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "I'm watching. He can't take both of us if one of us is moving." Her lip trembled, but she nodded. Samuel stood, rifle ready, his silhouette a grim figure against the firelight. He moved like a man who'd done this before. Because he had. The stepfather's blood dripped into the dirt as he crawled along the ridge. The bullet had grazed his arm, tearing flesh, but rage burned hotter than pain. He touched the wound, sneered, and licked the blood from his fingers. "You'll pay for that, old man," he hissed. "You'll pay, and she'll watch." He raised his rifle again, eyes narrowing on the fire below. This time, he wouldn't miss. Lydia couldn't stop trembling. Her body felt too small, too fragile, like the air itself might shatter her. But through the fear, she saw Samuel's back, broad, still, unyielding. For the first time in years, someone had stood between her and the monster, and that terrified her even more. Because monsters didn't just disappear, monsters waited, monsters punished. She whispered, "Please don't die." The shot split the night. Samuel jerked, stumbling back. The rifle dropped from his hands as he fell to one knee. "Samuel!" Lydia screamed. Blood spread across his shirt, dark in the firelight. He clutched his side, teeth bared, eyes blazing. The stepfather's laughter carried through the trees, low and triumphant. "It's over, girl!" he shouted. "Your hero's done!" Samuel forced himself upright, dragging in a ragged breath. He grabbed the rifle from the dirt, chambered another round, and hissed through clenched teeth. Not yet. He raised the weapon, aiming into the dark. His hands shook, blood dripping down his arm. The brush rustled. Boots crunched closer. The stepfather stepped into the glow of the fire at last. Knife gleaming, rifle slung low, smile stretched cruel across his face. Lydia's heart stopped. Samuel tightened his grip, blood running down his wrist. And then, a second shadow appeared behind the stepfather. The second shadow loomed tall behind the stepfather. For a heartbeat, Lydia thought the herd had returned, that some ghost of the wild had followed her here. But then the figure stepped into the firelight. A lawman, badge glinting, hat low, revolver steady. "Drop it," the sheriff barked. The stepfather froze, knife still in a hand. His sneer faltered, but only for a moment. Then it twisted back into place. "Well, well," he said, voice low, mocking. "The law finally shows its face. Took you long enough." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You're trespassing on my county, with a girl who don't belong to you." "She's mine," the stepfather spat. "Her ma's gone. Ain't no law says I can't take what's mine." Lydia's stomach turned. The words felt like chains all over again. Samuel staggered, blood dripping from his side. "She ain't yours," he growled, voice ragged. "Not anymore." The stepfather's eyes flared. He turned, snarling, ready to finish Samuel right there. But the sheriff's revolver cocked. "One move," he said coldly, "and you won't get another." The fire crackled, filling the silence. Lydia's heart slammed against her ribs, her gaze darting between the three men. Her stepfather, the sheriff, Samuel, barely standing, but standing still. She whispered, "Please, stop." The stepfather's smile broke into laughter, rough, harsh, joyless. "You think this lawman scares me? I've been chased off land, beaten, whipped, starved, and I'm still standing. I don't break, girl." His eyes turned sharp, wild. "But you do." He lunged, and the sheriff fired. The revolver's blast ripped through the night. The knife spun from the stepfather's hand, clattering to the dirt. He dropped to one knee, clutching his bleeding arm. Still, he laughed through the pain. "That all you got?" Samuel swayed where he stood, vision blurring. Lydia scrambled toward him, catching his arm, trying to hold him up. "Don't," he whispered. "Stay back. You're bleeding." Not the first time. His lips curled in a grim half-smile. Lydia's eyes filled, but she bit back the tears. She couldn't cry now, not when everything still hung in the air. The sheriff kept his revolver raised, eyes locked on the stepfather. "Stay down, boy. Don't make me finish it." But the man didn't stay down. With a guttural roar, he surged forward, grabbing the sheriff's arm, twisting, grappling for the gun. The revolver fired wild into the night. Sparks flew. Both men slammed into the dirt, wrestling, fists flying, blood smearing the ground. Samuel tried to lift his rifle, but his wound dragged him back to his knees. His strength was slipping fast. Lydia's heart thundered. She darted forward, grabbing the fallen knife. The handle was slick with blood, cold in her small hands. For a moment she froze, staring at it, trembling. She remembered every scar, every night, every whispered please that never saved her. Her stepfather roared, pinning the sheriff down, reaching for the revolver again. This was her moment. Her breath caught. Her chest ached. She raised the blade, but Samuel's voice cut through the storm. "Lydia!" She turned, eyes wide, knife shaking in her hand. "Don't," he rasped. "Don't let him make you like him." Her stepfather snarled, spitting blood, as he drove the sheriff's head into the dirt. "She's already mine. Always will be." Something inside Lydia broke. Her tears blurred the Firel. "Ite." Her grip on the knife wavered. For the first time, the decision was hers. Not Samuel's, not the sheriff's, hers. Her chest heaved as the sheriff cried out, struggling under the weight of the man pressing him into the earth. Lydia screamed, and the knife plunged. The fire popped. Sparks rose into the night sky. The sheriff rolled free, coughing, revolver clutched back in his hands. Samuel collapsed sideways against the log, eyes glassy, still watching. And Lydia stood frozen, knife dripping red, her hands shaking so violently the blade nearly slipped. Her stepfather staggered back, shock etched across his face. He looked at her, not with rage now, but with something worse. With recognition, with a slow, chilling smile, he whispered, "You got my blood in you after all." Then he collapsed into the dirt. The sheriff sat up, gasping. Samuel dragged air into his lungs, wincing. Lydia dropped the knife, stumbling back until her shoulders hit the log. Her breaths came ragged, her whole body trembling. She couldn't look at the man on the ground, couldn't look at her own hands. The sheriff's eyes hardened. He holstered his revolver, voice low. "This ain't over. He'll live. Men like him always do." Samuel coughed, blood on his lips. "Then we make sure next time he doesn't come knockin'." The sheriff glanced at Lydia, then at Samuel. His voice dropped like a hammer. "They wouldn't knock next time. They'd come to take her, or take revenge." The night stretched heavy over the clearing. The fire burned low, embers glowing faint red. Lydia sat huddled against the log, her eyes locked on her hands, hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Blood stained her fingers, dried dark against her skin. She couldn't wash it off, not ever. Samuel leaned against the saddle, pale, clutching his wound. The sheriff crouched beside him, tightening a strip of cloth around his side. "He won't bleed out tonight," the sheriff muttered, "but he needs a doctor. Bad." Samuel grunted, forcing a bitter smile. "Had worse." Lydia's voice was small, breaking. "He's not dead." Both men looked toward the body sprawled near the fire. Her stepfather's chest still rose and fell, weak, shallow, but alive. His knife wound had slowed him, but not ended him. Samuel's gaze hardened. "Not yet," the sheriff shook his head. "Law says he stands trial." "Law don't keep men like him in chains," Samuel shot back. His voice was hoarse, angry. "They slip 'em, always do." The sheriff didn't answer. His silence was enough. Lydia hugged her knees tight, rocking slightly. Every flicker of flame threw her stepfather's face into light. His twisted smile, even in unconsciousness, she whispered, "He'll come back. I know he will." Samuel's eyes softened, just for her. "Not while I'm breathing, girl." But breath was fragile. The woods stirred. Branches cracked in the distance. Hooves struck the earth. The sheriff tensed, drawing his revolver. Samuel straightened, wincing. Lydia's eyes darted toward the darkness. Out of the trees men rode in. 5, 6, maybe more. Faces hard, rifles across their saddles. One spat into the dirt. "We heard gunfire." His gaze slid to the bleeding stepfather, then to Lydia, then to Samuel. "Looks like trouble." The sheriff rose, badge gleaming in the firelight. "This man's under arrest." The riders laughed. "Arrest? That there's Jed McAllister? He's kin to half this county. You don't arrest McAllisters." Lydia's heart dropped. She knew those men, knew the name, knew what it meant. Samuel raised his rifle, weak but steady. "You touch the girl, you'll drop where you stand." The riders shifted uneasily, but their leader grinned. "Old man, you won't stop all of us." The fire cracked louder, sparks bursting into the night. Lydia's chest heaved. Samuel was bleeding out. The sheriff was outnumbered, and her stepfather's kin were here to finish what he had started. For a second, the world froze. Then the ground began to tremble. The men's laughed. Cut short. Horses stamped nervously, ears twitching. The sheriff frowned, glancing to the horizon. Lydia's eyes widened. She knew that sound. Hoofbeats. The herd returned. They came thundering from the ridge, wild manes flying, eyes glinting in the firelight. The stallion led the charge, his scream tearing through the night. The riders cursed, their mounts rearing, panic breaking their lines. Samuel's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Guess the girl wasn't lying." The The sheriff steadied Lydia, pulling her close as the wild herd poured through the clearing like a storm. The McAllister men scattered. One was thrown from his horse, another trampled in the chaos. Rifles fired wild, bullets lost in the thunder. The stallion reared high, hooves striking the ground inches from the stepfather's limp body. Dust exploded around him. Then, silence. The herd circled, restless, then broke away, vanishing into the dark as quickly as they had come. The riders were gone, fled, and the clearing lay still once more. Lydia collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, they weren't tears of fear. The sheriff holstered his revolver, staring at the trampled ground, the fading dust. Never thought I'd see it with my own eyes. Samuel lowered himself slowly, exhaustion finally overtaking him. His voice was faint but steady. Sometimes, the West remembers. Sometimes it fights back. Lydia crawled to his side, gripping his hand tight. "Don't leave me." His tired eyes met hers. "Not tonight." By dawn, the McAllisters had vanished into legend, riders who fled from a herd no bullet could stop. Jed McAllister, broken and bleeding, was hauled into town by the sheriff, chains at last around his wrists. But Lydia didn't watch him go. She stayed with Samuel, sitting by the fire, watching the sun creep over the horizon. For the first time, the light didn't scare her. She whispered, voice steady now, "I'm not afraid anymore." Samuel's gaze stayed fixed on the sunrise. He watched the sunset, knowing the girl no longer feared the dark.